Being called a burden when you're growing a human being inside you is a special kind of cruelty. My name is Ana Rivera, and I'm 29 years old. For 7 months of my pregnancy, my in-laws made it their mission to remind me every single day that I was worthless, that I was using their son, that I was a gold digger who trapped him with a baby, that I contributed nothing to the marriage while taking everything. My mother-in-law, Patricia, told me to my face at 6 months pregnant, "You're nothing but a burden. My son works himself to death while you sit at home getting fat. You're lucky he hasn't left you yet." My father-in-law, Robert, was worse. He'd comment on how much I ate, how I'd let myself go, how his son deserved better than some lazy woman who got pregnant to trap him into marriage. They said these things in front of my husband, Marcus, and he said nothing. He'd tell me later, "That's just how they are. They don't mean it. Just ignore them." But you can't ignore being called worthless when you're already feeling vulnerable, when your body is changing, when you're terrified about becoming a mother, when you need support and instead get cruelty. I endured it for 7 months, took every insult, every cruel comment, every degrading remark, because I loved my husband, because I wanted our baby to have a family. Then Patricia made one mistake, one comment that crossed a line even my husband couldn't ignore. And when I finally stood up for myself, when I told them I was done accepting their abuse, they did something unforgivable. They tried to have me declared mentally unfit, tried to take custody of my baby before she was even born, filed court papers claiming I was unstable, dangerous, a threat to their grandchild. They thought they could destroy me. Instead, they gave me exactly what I needed: documentation, witnesses, and a court date where everyone would finally hear the truth. Before I tell you what that judge said when she heard the evidence, before I tell you about the restraining orders that changed everything, before I tell you about my mother-in-law's face when she realized she'd destroyed her relationship with her son forever, I need you to do something. If this story is already making you furious, if you've ever been abused by in-laws who thought they owned you, if you've ever been called a burden when you were at your most vulnerable, hit that like button right now for every woman who was told she wasn't enough. Subscribe to this channel for stories about women who documented abuse, who fought back legally, and who won. We don't just survive here, we get restraining orders. Drop a comment, your city, your country, your story if you want to share. I read every single one. We're documented here, strategic, victorious. Now, let me take you back to the beginning, because to understand why they tried to take my baby, you need to understand what my marriage was like and why I stayed silent for so long. Let me tell you about the Rivera family and why I was never good enough for them. I met Marcus Rivera 4 years ago. I was 25, working as an elementary school teacher, making $42,000 a year. Not wealthy, but stable. I loved my job, loved working with kids. Marcus was 28, software engineer, made $90,000. We met through a dating app, clicked immediately. He was kind, funny, and attentive. His family was different, upper middle class. His father, Robert, owned a successful construction company. His mother, Patricia, didn't work. She'd been a stay-at-home mom who now spent her time managing their investments and judging everyone around her. They had money, not rich, but comfortable. Nice house in a gated community outside Dallas, country club membership, the whole package. I was from a working-class family. My parents were both teachers. We lived modestly. I'd put myself through college with loans and scholarships. I was proud of that. Patricia was not impressed. The first time I met Marcus's parents, 6 months into dating, Patricia looked me up and down like I was applying for a job I wasn't qualified for. So you're a teacher, elementary school. That must be sweet. The way she said sweet meant it meant unimpressive. Robert asked, "What do your parents do?" I said, "They're both teachers, high school." Patricia actually winced. "Oh, so teaching runs in the family, and you didn't want to aim higher?" Marcus jumped in. "Mom, teaching is a noble profession." She smiled tightly. "Of course it is, dear." But I knew what she thought. I wasn't enough, didn't make enough money, didn't have the right pedigree, wasn't what she'd imagined for her son. Marcus proposed after a year. Beautiful proposal. I said yes without hesitation. When we told his parents, Patricia's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Wonderful. Have you thought about the wedding budget? Teaching salaries can't be very generous." Marcus said, "We're paying for it ourselves." Patricia said, "Oh, that's modern of you. Robert and I paid for our wedding, of course, but times change." The digs never stopped. At every family dinner, every holiday, every gathering, Patricia found ways to remind me I wasn't enough. "Anna, that's a cute dress. From Target?" "Anna, you're lucky to have found Marcus. Not every man would be comfortable with such a modest lifestyle." "Anna, when are you planning to advance in your career? Teaching is fine for now, but surely you don't want to do that forever." I did want to do it forever. I loved teaching. But to Patricia, it was a character flaw. We got married 2 years ago. Small ceremony. Patricia complained about everything. The venue was too casual. My dress was too simple. The food wasn't up to her standards. On my wedding day, she pulled me aside and said, "I hope you know what you're getting into. Marriage to a Rivera comes with expectations. We take care of our own, but we expect our daughters-in-law to contribute equally." I said, "I will. I promise." She looked at me like she didn't believe me. For the first year of marriage, I tried so hard to please them, hosted perfect dinners when they came over, dressed nicer, worked overtime to save money to contribute more to our household. Nothing was ever enough. Then, last year, I got pregnant. It wasn't planned, but Marcus and I were thrilled. We'd talked about kids eventually. This was just sooner than expected. When we told Patricia and Robert, their reaction was strange. Patricia's face went tight. Pregnant, already. How convenient. Marcus said, "Mom, what does that mean?" She said, "It means your wife has been married less than 2 years and she's already pregnant. Some might find that calculated." Robert said, "Son, are you sure this is what you want? You're still establishing your career. A baby is expensive." Marcus said, "We're ready. We're excited." Patricia looked at me. "I hope you plan to keep working. Teachers get good maternity leave, don't they? You'll need to contribute financially." I said, "I'm planning to take 12 weeks, then go back." She said, "Good, because Marcus can't support a family on his own, despite what you think." That was the beginning of 7 months of hell. The abuse started almost immediately after we announced the pregnancy. Month 1, I had horrible morning sickness, couldn't keep anything down, lost weight instead of gaining. My doctor said it was normal for the first trimester, but concerning if it continued. Patricia came over one day when I was sick. I found myself on the couch, exhausted, barely able to move. She said, "This is what you're doing while Marcus is at work, lying around?" I said, "I'm sick, morning sickness." She said, "I worked through my entire pregnancy, took care of the house, cooked every meal. You're being dramatic." I was too tired to argue. In month 2, the sickness got worse. I had to take a week off work. My doctor wrote a note. It was medically necessary. Robert called Marcus, said, "Your wife is already missing work? The baby isn't even here yet. This is the kind of burden we were worried about." Marcus defended me, but weakly. "Dad, she's sick. The doctor said." "The doctor works for her. Of course he'll say whatever she wants to hear. She's already using the pregnancy as an excuse." Month 3, first trimester ended.
I started feeling better, started gaining weight. Baby bump is becoming visible. At a family dinner, Patricia commented on my plate. "That's a lot of food. Are you eating for 2 or 3?" I was having normal portions, maybe slightly larger because I was finally able to eat without nausea. Robert laughed. "Better watch it. Marcus doesn't want a wife who lets herself go completely." I looked at Marcus. He looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. Month 4, I had to buy maternity clothes. My regular clothes didn't fit anymore. Normal pregnancy progression. Patricia saw me in maternity jeans at another dinner. Already in maternity clothes? I didn't show up for 6 months, but everyone carries differently, I suppose. The implication was clear. I was getting fat. Not just pregnant, fat. In month 5, I was exhausted all the time. Working full-time while pregnant was hard. I'd come home and need to rest before making dinner. Patricia stopped by unannounced, found our kitchen not perfectly clean, dishes in the sink from breakfast. She said, "Anna, this is unacceptable. Marcus works all day and comes home to this. You're home earlier than him. You should have this place spotless." I said, "I'm tired. I'm 5 months pregnant and working full-time." She said, "Plenty of women work while pregnant. You're not special. You're just lazy." That word, lazy. She started using it more and more. Month 6 was when things got truly cruel. I'd gained about 25 pounds, normal for 6 months pregnant. My doctor said I was right on track, healthy weight gain. At Thanksgiving dinner at their house, Patricia commented on comment about what I ate. "Another roll? Haven't you had enough carbs?" "Maybe skip the pie, dear. You're looking quite round." Robert joined in. "Son, make sure she gets back in shape after the baby. You don't want to be stuck with someone who's let herself go." They said these things in front of 15 people, extended family, friends. Everyone heard. I excused myself, went to the bathroom, cried, came back determined to get through the rest of the day. Marcus said later in the car, "They were just joking. They didn't mean anything by it." I said, "Marcus, they called me fat in front of everyone while I'm 6 months pregnant with your child." He said, "They're from a different generation. They joke differently. Just ignore it." But how do you ignore being called fat when you're already feeling insecure about your changing body? Month 7 was the breaking point. Christmas at their house. I was 7 months pregnant, huge, uncomfortable, having Braxton Hicks contractions, swollen ankles, back pain, normal late pregnancy symptoms. I was sitting on the couch trying to stay comfortable. Patricia came over with a plate of cookies. She said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Anna, I brought you cookies. I know you can't seem to stop eating these days. Might as well give in to it." I said, "No, thank you. I'm not hungry." She said, "Come now. We all know you're eating constantly. That's why you're so big. It's not all baby." Something snapped. 7 months of abuse, 7 months of cruel comments, 7 months of being called lazy, fat, and a burden. I said, "Patricia, I need you to stop. These comments are hurtful. I'm pregnant. My body is changing because I'm growing your grandchild. I need you to stop commenting on my weight, my eating, and my appearance. It needs to stop." The room went silent. Everyone staring. Patricia's face went cold. "Excuse me?" I said, "I'm asking you respectfully to stop making comments about my body." She said, "I'm your mother-in-law. I can say what I want in my own house, and if you don't like it, you can leave." Robert stood up. "Anna, you're being disrespectful. Patricia was just making conversation. You're being overly sensitive." Marcus said, "Mom, Dad, maybe Anna has a point." Patricia cut him off. "Marcus, your wife just disrespected me in my own home. Are you going to let that stand?"
Marcus looked torn between his wife and his parents. I stood up, 7 months pregnant, exhausted, humiliated, done. I said, "I'll leave, but I'm done. I'm done accepting this treatment. I'm done pretending your cruelty is okay. I'm done." I left, drove home alone. Marcus stayed at his parents' house for another hour before coming home. When he got there, I told him, "I can't do this anymore. Your parents are abusive, and you let them. I can't raise our daughter around people who think this is okay." He said, "You're overreacting. They're just traditional. They don't mean harm." I said, "Marcus, they've called me lazy, fat, a burden, a gold digger for 7 months while I'm carrying your child. That's not traditional. That's abuse." He said, "You're being too sensitive. The pregnancy hormones are making you emotional." That's when I knew he would never choose me over them. He would always defend them, always make excuses. I said, "I'm going to stay with my sister for a few days. I need space." He said, "You can't just leave." I said, "Watch me." I packed a bag, left, went to my sister Maria's house. 2 days later, Marcus called. "My parents want to talk to you. They want to work things out." I said, "I don't want to talk to them. I want them to apologize for 7 months of abuse." He said, "They're not going to apologize. They don't think they did anything wrong. You need to be the bigger person." I said, "No, I don't. I'm not apologizing for setting boundaries." 3 days later, I got served with papers. The papers were from Marcus's parents, filed through their lawyer, a petition claiming I was mentally unfit to care for my unborn child. The document claimed I was emotionally unstable, I had verbally attacked Patricia without provocation, I had abandoned my husband during pregnancy, I showed signs of postpartum mental health issues before the baby was even born. They were seeking a court order for a mandatory psychiatric evaluation. They wanted temporary custody rights to ensure the child's safety. I read it in shock. They were trying to take my baby before she was even born. I called a lawyer immediately. Her name was Sandra Martinez. She specialized in family law and parental rights. I showed her the papers. She read them. Her eyebrows went up. "Anna, this is unprecedented. Grandparents don't have custody rights before a child is born. This won't hold up, but it's a serious accusation. We need to take it seriously and respond aggressively." I said, "They've been abusing me for 7 months. I finally stood up for myself, and they're trying to declare me mentally unfit." She said, "Tell me everything, from the beginning." I told her. Every comment, every insult, every cruel word, for 7 months, with dates, with witnesses, with context. Sandra took notes. "Do you have any of this documented? Texts, emails, witnesses?" I said, "I have witnesses. My sister was at some of the family dinners. My husband heard everything, and I started keeping a journal 3 months ago, writing down every incident." She said, "Good. That's good. We're going to fight this, and we're going to win." Over the next 2 weeks, Sandra built our case. She subpoenaed Marcus, his parents, family members who'd been at the dinners. She got requests, medical records showing my pregnancy was healthy and normal. She got statements from my doctor, my therapist, who I'd started seeing in month 5 to deal with the stress, and my principal at work. Every piece of evidence showed the same thing. I was a healthy, stable, employed woman who was being abused by her in-laws.
Sandra also filed a counter-petition, requesting restraining orders against Patricia and Robert, claiming harassment, emotional abuse, and an attempt to interfere with parental rights. The court date was set for 2 weeks before my due date. I was 8.5 months pregnant. Marcus called me. "Anna, please drop this. My parents are family. We need to work this out." I said, "Marcus, your parents tried to take my baby. Our baby. They filed legal papers claiming I'm mentally unfit. That's not something we work out." He said, "They're scared. They think you're unstable. They're trying to protect the baby." I said, "From what? From her mother, who loves her, who's done everything right this entire pregnancy, despite being abused by your parents?" He said, "You're being dramatic. Just talk to them. Drop the legal stuff." I said, "No, we'll let the judge decide." I hung up. The court date arrived. I was 8.5 months pregnant, could barely walk, having contractions on and off, but I showed up. Patricia and Robert were there with their lawyer. They looked confident, like they thought they'd win. Marcus was there too. He'd been subpoenaed. He looked miserable. The judge was a woman in her early 60s, Judge Karen Mitchell, known for being no nonsense. She looked at the petition, looked at Patricia and Robert, looked at me, obviously 8.5 months pregnant. She said, "Let me make sure I understand. You're seeking custody rights over an unborn child based on claims that the mother is mentally unfit. Is that correct?" Their lawyer, a man named James Harrison, stood. "Yes, Your Honor, we have concerns about Mrs. Rivera's mental stability and believe intervention is necessary to protect the child." Judge Mitchell said, "What evidence do you have of mental instability?" James said, "We have testimony from the grandparents that Mrs. Rivera has been erratic, emotional, and verbally aggressive. She abandoned her husband without cause. She's shown signs of instability." Judge Mitchell said, "She's 8.5 months pregnant. Emotion is normal. What else?" James stumbled. "Your Honor, the grandparents have observed concerning behavior." Judge Mitchell cut him off. "Observed where? In their own home where they've been hosting her for family dinners? The same dinners where, according to the response brief, they made repeated comments about her weight, her career, and her worth?" She'd read Sandra's brief. She'd read everything. Sandra stood. "Your Honor, may I present evidence?" Judge Mitchell nodded. Sandra began methodically. She called witnesses, started with my sister Maria. Maria testified about the Thanksgiving dinner, the comments Patricia and Robert made, how they'd called me fat, lazy, a burden, in front of 15 people. I watched my sister cry in the bathroom. She's 7 months pregnant, and they were tearing her apart, in front of everyone. It was cruel. Sandra called my friend Karen, who'd been at the Christmas gathering. She testified about the same thing, the cookie incident, Patricia's comment about me being so big. Anna set a very reasonable boundary. She asked them to stop commenting on her body. Patricia kicked her out of the house for it. Sandra called my doctor. He testified that my pregnancy was completely normal. Healthy weight gain, normal emotional state. No signs of any mental health crisis. Mrs. Rivera is one of my healthiest patients. She's followed every recommendation, attended every appointment. There's absolutely no medical reason to question her fitness as a mother. Sandra called my therapist. She testified that I'd sought therapy specifically to cope with emotional abuse from my in-laws. Anna came to me in month 5 of her pregnancy. She was being subjected to constant criticism from her in-laws, body shaming, financial shaming. She was depressed and anxious because of their treatment. But she's not mentally unstable. She's reacting normally to abuse. Then Sandra called Marcus. He was sworn in, looked uncomfortable. He wouldn't look at me. Sandra said, "Mr. Rivera, in the 7 months of your wife's pregnancy, how many times did you hear your parents make negative comments about her weight? Marcus said, a few times. Sandra said, a few or every time you saw them? Marcus said, more than a few. Sandra said, did they call her lazy? Yes. Did they say she was a burden? Yes. Did they suggest she was using you for money? Yes. Sandra said, and when she finally asked them to stop at Christmas, what happened? Marcus said, She told my mother to stop commenting on her body. My mother got upset. Anna left. Sandra said, your mother kicked her out, didn't she? Marcus said, my mother asked her to leave, yes. Sandra said, and you stayed at your parents' house another hour instead of leaving with your pregnant wife who'd just been verbally abused by your parents. Marcus said, I was trying to smooth things over. Sandra said, by abandoning your wife? Marcus said, nothing. Sandra said, Mr. Rivera, do you believe your wife is mentally unfit to be a mother? Long pause. Marcus looked at me. Finally looked at me. He said, no. Sandra said, do you support your parents' petition? He said, no. Sandra said, then why are they here? Why did they file this? Marcus said, because Anna won't talk to them, won't accept their calls. They're upset. They want to be part of the baby's life. Sandra said, so they filed a legal petition claiming she's mentally unfit to force contact. Marcus realized how it sounded. I guess so. Sandra said, no further questions. She called Patricia next. Patricia took the stand, composed, confident. She thought she was winning. Sandra said, Mrs. Rivera, how many times did you comment on Anna's weight during her pregnancy? Patricia said, I don't recall specifically. Sandra pulled out my journal. I have documentation of 16 separate incidents. Would you like me to read them? Patricia's face tightened. I may have made some comments. They were meant to be helpful. I was concerned about her health. Sandra said, helpful? You told her she was eating for 3 people. You said she looked like a beach ball. You told your son she needed to get back in shape after the baby. How is that helpful? Patricia said, I was trying to motivate her. Some women let themselves go completely during pregnancy. Sandra said, did you call her lazy? Patricia said, she was home from work, a lot, missing days. Sandra said, she had a doctor's note. She had hyperemesis gravidarum, severe morning sickness. It's medically documented. Patricia said, that's just morning sickness. Women work through that. Sandra said, Mrs. Rivera, do you understand that what you've been doing to your daughter-in-law constitutes emotional abuse? Patricia said, I haven't abused anyone. I've been trying to prepare her for motherhood. She's young. She needs guidance. Sandra said, guidance? You filed legal papers claiming she's mentally unfit. You're trying to take custody of her baby before it's even born. Does that sound like guidance? Patricia said, we're protecting our grandchild from an unstable mother. Sandra said, based on what evidence? The evidence that she asked you to stop body shaming her? That's your evidence of instability? Patricia had no answer. Judge Mitchell had heard enough. She said, I'm ready to rule. Judge Mitchell looked at Patricia and Robert. Her expression was ice. She said, in 30 years on the bench, I have never seen a more frivolous, malicious petition than this. What you've done is unconscionable. Patricia started to speak. The judge held her hand. Mrs. Rivera, you subjected your pregnant daughter-in-law to 7 months of documented emotional abuse.
body shaming, financial shaming, constant criticism. Then, when she finally set a reasonable boundary, you kicked her out and filed this petition, not out of genuine concern, but out of spite. She looked at Robert. And you enabled every bit of it. She looked at their lawyer. Counselor, I hope you advised your clients that this petition had no